Chapter 81 Audrey got tricked. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I beg to take my leave now, Your Majesty. Mr. Martinez bowed his head slightly. Joanna was stunned to see the Prime Minister so docile and obedient when he was ever so talkative. Apart from the Queen, the second person who always tried to detect things for the King was Mr. Martinez, the Prime Minister. He has so many supporters and influence, and this is why he isn't afraid of anything. Seeing him so afraid and obedient made Joanna wonder what on earth Caden did to take the man this way. You may leave, but are you sure you don't want to? To the utter surprise of everyone who was waiting for the Prime Minister to put the King in his rightful place, the elderly man hurried away before Caden could finish talking. The moment he left, Joanna turned and gave Caden a questioning gaze, but he looked away. Let's go, Caden said as he led the way. When they reached outside, Audrey wanted to stop Caden from taking Joanna away, but Chris stopped her. What is he trying to play at now? Audrey asked fiercely as she tried to push Chris out of her way, but Chris didn't move a muscle. Wasn't he indifferent when she died? So what, Miss Audrey, the King is not as bad as you think. And what you see is not always entirely true. You will get to understand what I mean in the future. I don't believe what you say and I won't understand what you and he did, so let go of me now. Audrey said fiercely. Audrey struggled to free herself, but Chris won't let go no matter what. I made a huge mistake in the past and I won't repeat the same thing. If you want to separate the King and Miss Joanna, then you have to go through me first, Chris said sternly. He let go of her hand and took his stand ready to battle it out with Audrey. As he tried to stop Audrey from separating Joanna from the King, he stole a glance at them to make sure that they were far away. Do you think I wouldn't fight you just because you are the King's person? Audrey asked angrily as she also took her stance. Before Chris knew it, her eyes, fangs and teeth had transformed. If that's what you think, then you are very wrong. Now that she is back, then I will do everything to protect her from everyone including herself, Audrey said fiercely. So bring it on, Audrey said coldly. From her words and expression, it was so obvious that she was ready to fight Chris right there and then. Seeing the King's car drive away, Chris smiled. He dropped his hands. What is wrong? Are you too scared to fight me? Audrey said provocatively. I can never be too scared to defend the King no matter how mighty the enemy is, Chris said softly. The King and Miss Joanna are gone, so fighting with you here is meaningless right now, Chris said as he left her path. Audrey glared at him when she realized that the King and Joanna were really gone. You, the angry Audrey pointed her index finger at Chris when noticed that she was tricked by him. You might have succeeded today, but I promise you that you won't next time. I will make sure I uncover his real face to Anna. Let's see where she will follow him next time after she learns the kind of heartless person the two of you are, Audrey said. She deliberately bumped into Chris as she made to walk away. Although His Majesty is very tolerant of your bad attitude towards him, there is a limit to what he can do to protect you, Chris said before Audrey could walk far away. That is why I will ask you not to overdo it, because there will come a time he won't be able to protect you from the wrath of others. You guys might be friends, but he is still the King. Point of correction, I am no friends with him, okay? Audrey interrupted Chris sharply. She stomped away in anger afterwards. She is mad at His Majesty because he sent her away and pretended not to believe what she said that night, Chris said while staring at Audrey's departing back. If only she knew that he did what he did to protect her that night, I am sure she wouldn't hate His Majesty so much if she is aware of the length he went through to avenge Miss Joanna. It's just unfortunate that she is in the dark about all these things. Chris turned and walked back into the hall after Audrey had disappeared into the dark. Some minutes later, Caden was seen parking the car in front of a tall building. Because it was very late, hardly anyone was in sight. The first to step out of the car was Joanna. She went and stood in front of the car. Caden came out of the car with a bottle of champagne and 2 wine glasses in his hands. Wait here, I will be back, Caden smiled at her after dropping the things in his hands on the bonnet of the black sports car. He walked to the passenger seat and opened the door. He returned with a small-size cake carefully wrapped. What are all these? Joanna asked curiously, not understanding why he had prepared so much. From the onset, I knew you wouldn't like at the party, and that is why I asked Josephina to get these things ready, including your favorite vanilla cake, Caden said, bringing the cake near for her to get a closer view at it. Vanilla cake. Joanna remarked in shock as she raised her gaze from the cake and stared at Caden's smiling face. Even Dre doesn't know that this particular cake and flavor is my favorite, so how did he know all these things? Joanna wondered as she continued looking at Caden. I know I look exceptionally handsome today, but are you gonna stand here all night staring at my face? Caden asked teasingly. His tease made Joanna snap out of her daze. Your cold facade earlier almost made me forget how shameless of a person you are. I can't believe I almost got fooled, Joanna replied in a casual tone too, since it was just the two of them. To others, I am a cold king, but with you, I am nothing but a passionate lover who is head over heels for you. I have told you this before, you must have forgotten, don't you feel embarrassed saying these words? I often wonder about this, so fulfill my curiosity, Joanna said. She tried to sit on the bonnet of the car, but she realized she couldn't do it because of her floor-length dress. What is there to be ashamed of when we are gonna spend our entire lives together? Caden said. Chapter 82 He strangled Chris. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He dropped the cake on the bonnet and went to stand in front of her. Since we are gonna see the best and worst of each other while spending our entire lives together, why don't I show you every side of me that there is now? Caden asked as he held her slender waist. This was what I asked myself, Caden said. He tried to lift her, but Joanna resisted. What do you think you are doing? Joanna asked with widened eyes. She looked around to see whether anyone was around. I am trying to help you sit, or what were you thinking I was trying to do? Caden's lips curled into a wicked smile as he effortlessly lifts Joanna onto the bonnet. After he made her sit on the bonnet, he also did the same thing. He sat beside her while the thing prepared laid on the other side of the bonnet. You keep getting weird thoughts about me lately, and I have told you that I can satisfy all of your desires as long as you accept me. I swear, I am gonna push you off the car if you keep this up, Joanna threatened firmly. You can continue if you want to have a taste of being kicked out of your own car, Joanna said sternly when she saw Caden open his mouth to talk. I wanted to say stop frowning and let's enjoy our first official date together, Caden said as he corked open the bottle of wine in his hands. First date. I haven't agreed to your proposal, so how can this be our first date? Joanna asked with a frown. She watched as Caden poured the wine into the two glasses. He passed one of the glasses to her. He smiled bewitchingly at her. You are right. How can this be the king's first date with his queen? Caden said, still maintaining his bewitching smile. This is just a preamble. I will make sure to think of a better set up for our first date. He took a sip from the glass of wine in his hands. As he drank, Joanna stared at the movement of his Adam apple. She gulped hard and subconsciously licked her lips as she ogled over his sexy Adam apple. Gosh, what the hell is wrong with me? Why are my sexual urges always out of control whenever I am with him? Joanna, on realizing what she was doing, looked away, not letting Caden catch her in the act. Caden turned to see her drink the wine like it was water she was drinking. Drink it slowly or you will upset your stomach if you gulp it down that way, Caden said as he held the glass of wine stuck to her mouth. If you love the taste, they are more in the car and I can have Chris deliver it to you every day. I have no plans of becoming an alcoholic, so I will have to reject your offer, Joanna said, her gaze subconsciously going to his neck again. At this rate I am gonna end up bouncing on him. I need something for a distraction. Joanna looked away from his face when she realized that she was ogling him for the second time. Why is your face red? Are you? I saw that Tiffany's grandpa was scared of you at the party earlier. Why is that? Joanna quickly changed the topic, knowing very well that Caden will not stop until he finds out the truth. Did you do something to the proud old man while I was away? What do you think? Caden said. The evil glints in his eyes showed that something really happened between him and the old man. Seeing your evil smile, I guess something interesting must have happened, right? Joanna asked curiously. Seeing his evil smile made her want to know exactly what happened. Joanna's question made Caden's mind go back to that night he had tried his best to forget. Although having her back now makes him happy, he could not forget the pain he went through. He has vowed never to get helpless to the point he was that night, and he will do all it takes to make sure such an occasion doesn't repeat itself. That night after Audrey's revelation he had left the hotel and rushed to the exact spot Audrey mentioned in her narration. In that forest, he had met the evidence of what took place there. At first glance, he recognized the pieces of dresses scattered on the ground. How could he not know what her dress looked like even though in rags when he was the one who personally picked it for her? Caden went mad in rage. Get me all the evidence left behind in the forest, Caden thundered, only to appear on the edge of the cliff. How high exactly is the cliff from the foot of the forbidden forest? Caden muttered as he stared down. All he could see was endless darkness. Not a single thing was visible. A figure who was lurking in the dark emerged the moment the king finished talking. Your Majesty, you are not trying to do what I am thinking, right? Chris, who just emerged from the dark, said as he grabbed Caden's right hand. Haven't I told you that I don't want to set my eyes on you? Caden asked as he turned and glared at Chris. Are you going to keep on disobeying my orders? Will you stop pushing me to the extreme when I issue a royal order? Caden asked angrily as he shoved Chris's hands away. You can do whatever you want to me, I won't complain, but I promise you that I won't let any harm come to you. Hey, stop pretending as if you care about me because you don't. The infuriated Caden pushed Chris violently away. Chris moved about 10 steps away as a result of the push. You are the reason she was harmed. Any of this wouldn't have happened if you had followed her like I had ordered you to do, Caden shouted, startling the guards who were trying to gather all the material evidence. Caden ran at an incredible speed. When he reached where Chris stood he grabbed him by the neck and lifted him off the ground. Just as those scums are guilty of murdering her, so are you, so stop acting, because seeing you this way infuriates me even more. Caden didn't release Chris despite how hard he was swinging his legs. A very important announcement. Happy new month. First of all, I would like to apologize to regular readers for not updating chapters for the past 3 days. Sorry, I couldn't meet up with the daily updates for you guys, it's just that I was trying to set up the privileged chapters, that is why. As you know, it's a new month and as usual time for new goals. Goals for July 2022. Goal 1. Reach 1000, 1K, privileged chapter unlocked to get 5 extra chapters the following month. To reach this particular goal you guys have to buy the privileged chapters, and not just buy them but make sure to unlock the chapters daily. Please support my work by buying the privileged chapters and unlocking the chapters daily, because this is the only way the privileged chapter unlock will count. Apart from the 5 chapters mass release, those who buy privileged chapters will stand a chance to win a coin code worth 100 coins the next month. Isn't this amazing? Goal 2. Every 50 golden tickets we get this month guarantees you guys 3 extra chapters. That is to say that if we receive 200 golden tickets this July 2022, you guys stand a chance of getting extra 9 chapters. The daily updates are not included. Isn't this such a fantastic bargain? Goal 3. For every 100 power stones this book receives each week, 3 extra chapters will be uploaded the next week as a reward for the goal. This is to say that if we get 200 power stones this week, in the following week I will give 6 chapters mass release without the inclusion of the daily 2 chapters. Please let's try hard to complete the goals. I strongly believe we can do this, don't you agree with me on this? Chapter 83. The proud Prime Minister got taught a lesson. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although he was running out of breath, Chris didn't struggle nor did he plead for his life. Stay far away from me because even I don't know what I will do to you if I set my eyes on you. I might even stab you in the heart for this betrayal, so leave now." Caden threw Chris away, not caring the direction. He turned his back on Chris, not wanting to see his face. Chris, who was thrown into a big tree trunk, slowly stood up from the ground. He stared at the king whose back was facing him. "I will take my leave now, Your Majesty." Chris bowed and walked away. Even when Chris was gone, Caden didn't turn around. "Your Majesty, we have got all the evidence," Gideon, Chris's second in command, said. "Let's return to the palace and take a look at the CCTV cameras in the forest," Caden said. He walked away without taking a look at the stuff in Gideon's hands. Some minutes later, Caden and 3 of his close guards were seen in a dark room full of big screens. Footages could be seen playing on the screen. He clasped his fist when he saw the suffering Joanna went through. "I want all the boys in the footage brought to the palace. Make sure their parents are aware of their crimes before you take them." Caden passed his orders. Gideon and the other guards bowed and left the room to carry out the king's order. Reaching outside, they were not surprised to see Chris waiting outside. After learning about the mission the king gave them, he joined them, but he made sure the guards promised not to mention his involvement to the king. It wasn't until an hour after they left that they returned to the palace with all the boys in the video in their company. The boys who were subdued were hauled into the throne room by Gideon and his men. Not long after they returned, the guy's father rushed to the palace seeking an audience with the king. The angry Caden refused to grant them an audience for an hour. All their pleas fell on deaf ears since the guards didn't let them go anywhere close to where the king was. Caden was with the 5 guys for an hour before he finally let in their anxious parents. Despite being in front of the king, the minister didn't mind their manners. The terrible state they met their sons made them go mad in rage. "Do you admit your guilt?" Gideon asked the 5 guys sternly. When they were brought to the throne room, they were all proud because of their different family influence. Just an hour of torture and they were humbled to their knees. Anyways, who on earth wouldn't get terrified after what they went through in the hands of the king's elite guards? "There is no evidence to prove your claims, so why do you want them to admit a crime you falsely accused them of?" Mr. Martinez asked angrily as he glared at Gideon. "You think there is no evidence?" Caden asked. His voice was still like water, but the danger in it was very obvious. "Watch carefully and tell me if this is enough evidence to shut you up." Caden asked as he stared at Gideon. Understanding the signal, Gideon turned and looked at another guard, and almost immediately a video started playing on the projector. The video started playing from when the guys entered the forest before they shifted into werewolves. The clip played until it reached the scene where the guys started attacking Joanna and Audrey. The clip skipped from there to when the guys left the forest. The scene of Joanna's clothes getting ripped off was deliberately removed. "How is that possible?" Logan, Tiffany's cousin, said in disbelief. All their thought was that there was no evidence of what they did in the forest, and that is the reason they had refused to confess no matter how hard they were tortured. Now that they were clips of them committing the act, they knew without being told that they were done for. "Gideon, what is the punishment for the crime of murdering the queen?" Caden asked coldly. Hearing the crime of murdering the queen made the boys and their parents trembled like wet leaves. "Death," Gideon said fiercely. The word death repeatedly echoed in the perpetrator's head. The scene of being hanged until every bit of it slipped out of him popped up in Logan's head. Logan shook his head violently to shake off the thoughts in his mind. "Not just mere death, but a very painful one at that," Gideon concluded firmly. "I don't need to tell you all to brace yourself for the, Your Majesty, it hasn't reached this extent. The kids were just being naughty. You know how children play nowadays," Mr. Martinez said shamelessly. "For the sake that they are just immature kids, please have mercy on them." Despite that his grandson committed such a crime, he wasn't sincere or repentant while talking to Caden. "Did I hear you say then murdering the queen was an act of play?" Caden asked, standing up from the throne he was sitting on. She was just 18 years old today while these boys are 20 years and above and you call them children. Caden asked as he climbed down the stairs. With the king's counterattack, Mr. Martinez was momentarily lost at what to say to defend his grandson. They brutally killed the queen and you want me to show them mercy. Do you really take me for an idiot or is it that you have no respect for the crown? Caden thundered, making everyone go down on their knees. The only one who didn't kneel was Mr. Martinez, who thinks that he could drag honor and respect with the king. We wouldn't dare, Your Majesty, they chorused with trembling voices. Who could withstand the wrath of the king? Even though he decided to kill all of them, none would dare to challenge him. A few people will criticize him for a few weeks for brutally murdering his subjects and ministers, but this will be forgotten in a matter of weeks. Why would they risk their lives to annoy such a being who has their lives in his hands right now? My grandson and his friends only helped you to get rid of a problem you have been wanting to rid yourself of all these years, Mr. Martinez said with pride. They saved you the trouble of dirtying your hands with her filthy blood, so you must be very happy right now, so there is no need to pretend in front of us, Mr. Martinez concluded, smiling broadly. He was still grinning when Caden, who just appeared in front of him, grabbed him by the neck and lifted him off the floor with one hand. A/N. Please continue to support the book with gifts, golden tickets, power stones, comments and reviews. Also, don't forget our goals for the month, because these goals will guarantee whether or not you guys will get all the extra chapters as a reward. Also, for those who don't have money to buy the highest tier of privileged chapters, you can buy the affordable ones, because this is the reason I shared the tiers into 5. I wanted every one of my readers to be able to afford it, so please support this poor author by buying the privileged chapters and unlocking the chapters daily. If you want to stand a chance to win 100 code coins next month, your only ticket to getting the code is by buying privileged chapters, so what are you waiting for? I believe we can achieve the goal, so you guys need to believe in yourselves too. Fighting. Chapter 84. They got scammed by the king. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Repeat the nonsense you just spew and I promise not to only rip your goddamn mouth to tiny pieces, but I will make sure that your head is not sticking to your body when you breathe your last, Caden said, his bloodthirsty eyes focused on the man who was swinging his legs to and fro. Grandpa, Logan shouted when he saw just how tightly the enraged king was grabbing the prime minister by the neck. The look in his eyes was evident that he didn't give a damn whether or not he choked the man to death. Logan crawled on the leg to where Caden was holding the man, still struggling to preserve the little consciousness left in him. Please, Your Majesty, save my grandpa. Please don't kill him, Logan pleaded profusely with his palms together. Your Majesty, he might not be able to withstand it if you don't release him now, Gideon spoke up when he saw that the king wasn't with his senses. Gideon spoke 2 more times before the king finally released Mr. Martinez. The proud man landed on the floor with a big thud. He coughed severely while holding his burning neck. Didn't you say I am happy that my queen got killed? Caden said as he approached his throne. He turned to face them when he was standing right in front of his throne. So why don't I show you guys just how happy I am by killing each one of them right in front of your eyes? Caden stunned everyone with his words. He is not serious, right? The king must be joking, right? He is not going to really kill them, the boys' parents mumbled among themselves. Get me the sword. I am going to behead them myself. Caden's words made everyone in the hall tremble. Even the guards could not hide their shock. They stare at the king as though he was a stranger and not the person they have been serving all these years. When I am done, I am sure that all of you will be happier than I am, so there is no need to fret, Caden said as he collected the sword from the guard who provided him with one. Your Majesty. Please, please don't, Mr. Martinez let go of his ego and pleaded like the desperate man that he is. His wife never had sons, so he didn't have an heir to will his properties to after his death. After so many years seeking for a male child, his second daughter gave birth to a son he has been yearning for all his life. From the day he was born until these moments he had showered all his love and attention on Logan. He has so many expectations of him. He wouldn't be able to survive the night if he lost him, not to mention watching him die in front of him. What kind of torture could be more painful than watching your very beloved child die in front of you while you as a parent are helpless? The clanging of the sword generated by how the king was dragging the sword on the floor sent shivers down their spine. The clanging was like the ticking of a time bomb, which means that the moment the ticking stops is the time they lose their lives. It was so horrifying for every single parent there, including the boys. Please, pleads and wailing filled the room as they watched the king draw closer. He acted as if he didn't hear any of their pleas. In a minute or two let's see whether each one of you will be happier than me, Caden said as he paused in front of Logan. Mr. Martinez's heart stopped beating for a few seconds when he realized that his grandson was the king's first target. Caden lifted the sword just above his head. All pleads fell on deaf ears. He descended the sword immediately. Just before he could chop Logan's head off his body, Mr. Martinez went down on his knees. If he was just a second late, then he would have lost his grandson forever. I admit they were wrong in killing the queen. No matter what was their reason, they shouldn't have killed her, so please forgive them, Mr. Martinez pleaded profusely when he saw that Caden wasn't kidding around, neither were his words mere threats. Even though not for anything but for the sake that I have been a good minister who has served under many kings. For the sake of my merits, please spare their lives. And why should I listen to you when you have always made it a point of duty to challenge my authority? Caden asked coldly. Also, didn't you just say I was happy that she died, so why are you so scared to experience the same happiness? Or is it that you are allergic to happiness? Normally Mr. Martinez would have said something, but he was very sober at the moment for some reason. As long as you let my son live, then I promise to do anything you want. Also, I won't undermine your authority starting from this moment, Mr. Martinez said, not stopping to plead. He knew very well that the fate of his grandson relies on what the king's judgment would be. He knew that provoking the king by acting stubborn will only push his grandson nearer to his grave. It's the queen your grandson killed and not some commoner, so how could your mere promises be enough for a bargaining chip for his life? Caden asked, swinging the sword left and right to remind the Mr. Martinez what was at stake. You name the price. I will give you whatever you want as long as you let him live, Mr. Martinez said with a secretly clasped fist. I want the army your family has been building up to be made into the royal army, Caden stated firmly. Starting from this moment you will promise never to instigate the ministers to go against my orders, Caden trailed. Also, from this day onwards never will anyone in your household ever become the queen. What? Mr. Martinez, who has eyed the queen's position for his granddaughter ever since Caden became the king, shouted. Do you have a problem with that? Caden asked fiercely. Even though Mr. Martinez wanted to say something, he swallowed back whatever he wanted to say when Caden brought the sword close to Logan's neck. No, Your Majesty, Mr. Martinez said with his head lowered. Caden went ahead and stated more conditions, not only for the Prime Minister but also for the other parents too. All the conditions he stated were immediately printed on paper and given to all the parents to sign in case they decide to do otherwise in the future. Joan, I am so sorry that I had to use your death to get what I have always wanted from them, but believe me, I am not doing this for myself but for the people you love. Caden was in a daze as they signed the documents. With these I will be able to publicly protect everything and everyone you love. I won't have to sneakily do it like how I did with you when you were alive. I couldn't publicly protect you despite how important you were to me. I don't want the same thing to happen, and this is why I am doing this. Caden's eyes became misty as he kept on staring into space. Although I have decided to spare their lives, that doesn't mean that I won't avenge you, so don't get me wrong. Because I will make sure they still pay the price of murdering you. Caden snapped out of his daze when he heard background voices. Your Majesty, now that we have signed the papers, can we go with our sons? One of the boys' parents asked curiously. Caden shifted his gaze to the man who talked. Did you say you want to take them with you? Caden asked, his expression was emotionless. When did I ever mention that they were going to go with you? Caden stunned everyone with his words. Chapter 85 Stay Away from Me, Beast. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What? Mr. Martinez, who has made so many sacrifices just because he wanted to take his grandson with him, shouted with widened eyes. Your Majesty, take them with you. I am sure you don't need me to tell you where they belong, right? Kaidan said emotionlessly to his guards. He strolls away, paying no listening ears to their pleas. If they had the guts to kill someone, then they must be gutsy enough to face the consequences, Kaidan muttered before he vanished into space. That night he didn't sleep at the palace but went to keep Joanna company in hopes that she won't feel lonely. Remembering that incident, Kaidan could not resist smiling. Why are you grinning now, Joanna nudged him gently to bring him back to the present. Are you not going to teach me how you tamed him? I want tips so I will know how to tame Adhara and Laura. Why do you need tips when everyone in the kingdom, including them, has been tamed by you? Kaidan chuckled when he recalled the incident at the party. Maybe for 50 years to come, he will still laugh any time he recalls this fateful night. But, if you think they are still not tamed enough, then hold a dagger to their necks. There is nothing people love more than their lives, believe me, Kaidan said confidently. Why does it sound like you have become crueler after I was away? Joanna asked. Her questions were supposed to be a joke, but Kaidan didn't see it as one. I have always been like this. I never showed this side of mine because there was no reason for it, Kaidan trailed as he took a sip from the glass of wine. But I lost every bit of humanity left in me the day they stole the most important thing in my life, Kaidan said. This time around he gulped down the entire champagne in the glass. Why are you suddenly acting so serious? Joanna asked, seeing how drastically his mood had changed. She watched him as he dropped the glass on the bonnet. I am so used to seeing that sly look in your eyes and get very scared when you act so serious. The words stopped coming when Kaidan cupped her face, catching her unawares. And you will continue to see this lovely side of mine for as long as you want. All I want is for you to promise never to leave me again, Kaidan said as he stroked her face affectionately. There were pains and desperation in his eyes as he stared into her purple eyes. I didn't love you this much and I went insane when you left. Joan, I can't imagine the kind of havoc I will cause if you leave me again, so promise me. I know we have gotten very close lately, but don't you think you are asking too much for a girl who isn't? Please Joan, just promise me, okay? And in return, I promise that I will never stop loving you. You will be the only woman I love in this lifetime. Kaidan made his vows right there and then. Joanna stared into his eyes. Seeing him this way, for some reason she couldn't bring herself to push him away. I have just come back from the dead, so I have no plans of going anywhere or dying for the second time, okay? Joanna replied, deliberately not making promises. Nothing hurts more than broken promises and shattered dreams. She didn't want him to experience these two things. That's good enough then, Kaidan smiled at her. Do you know that you are such a weird guy? How could your mood change so drastically? Joanna asked, seeing that his mood had brightened up after she replied. This is not the first or second time you have told me this, so this means I must really be a weird guy, Kaidan said jokingly. What a weird king you are, Joanna replied. She and Kaidan sat and enjoyed themselves on the bonnet for a few hours before they entered the car. Kaidan and Joanna spent the night inside the car right at that spot. They talked throughout the night. It was about an hour to daybreak that Joanna fell asleep with her head resting on Kaidan's shoulders. I never knew it was so fascinating to watch someone sleep until now, Kaidan mumbled as he stared intensely at Joanna's sleeping face. I wonder when I am gonna have another opportunity like this, Kaidan said as he lifted his right hand to touch her face. Just when his hand was about to reach her, Joanna's eyes opened. He didn't retract his hand or pretend to be doing something else. What were you trying to do to me this early morning? Joanna asked as she quickly shielded her face with her palms. Kaidan drew closer when he saw how overprotective she was of her face. I wanted to have a feeling of how your mouth tastes early in the morning. I wanted to see whether it tastes as sweet as it tastes at night. Kaidan said as he shifted closer. Thank goodness you woke up at the perfect time. Now I won't have to sneakily have a taste of it. I will. Stay away from me, you beast, Joanna blurted as she immediately covered her mouth with her hands. Ha 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 asterisk 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 Caden laughed hysterically as he pulled back from her. He laughed until Joanna got annoyed with his laughter, but that didn't stop him from laughing further. Stop acting so cutely or I might really lose control of myself and pounce on you. By then you will know just the kind of beast I am, Caden said amidst his laughter. And who says I am weak too in that aspect? Joanna asked, sounding very confident. Why don't we give it a try right now to determine who is the real beast and who is still learning? Caden said as he drew closer to her. He shifted closer to her until her back was pressing hard against the car's door. Let's see whether you are strong enough to handle my roughness, Caden said as he lowered his face to kiss her. You will have to call me daddy if you get tired before I do, Caden said as he kissed her. A/N. Please continue to support the book with gifts, golden tickets, power stones, comments and reviews. Also, don't forget our goals for the month because these goals will guarantee whether or not you guys will get all the extra chapters as a reward. Also for those who don't have money to buy the highest tier of privileged chapters, you can buy the affordable ones because this is the reason I shared the tiers into 5. I wanted every one of my readers to be able to afford it, so please support this poor author by buying the privileged chapters and unlocking the chapters daily. If you want to stand a chance to win 100 code coins next month, your only ticket to getting the code is by buying privileged chapters, so what are you waiting for? I believe we can achieve the goal, so you guys need to believe in yourselves too. Fighting. Chapter 86 Hands Off, Young Lady, you are listening at NovelFull.audio. Before he kissed her, Joanna had gotten ready to put on a strong fight so that he would not have his way, but the sweet taste of his lips made her lose the desire to fight him. Wow, she loves me. I can't believe this. Caden's heart danced in excitement when he noticed Joanna respond to his kiss immediately without him having to work so hard to make her open her mouth. He kissed her gently but passionately. He was still trying to take things slowly when Joanna suddenly dominated things. She kissed him roughly and made him subconsciously move from where he sat. She made him move until his back was pressing against the door of the car. Before Caden could fathom what was happening, Joanna started unbuttoning his shirt. God damn it. She is gonna strip and claim my innocence if we keep this up. Caden momentarily regained his consciousness. Although he so much wanted to stop her from going further, his body and heart weren't listening to what he wanted. It keeps craving for more, and he knew very well what will be the end point if he doesn't pull himself together. Hands off, young lady, Caden said as he immediately grabbed her hands, still undoing his buttons. Despite he was holding her hand, Joanna, who was acting like a sexually starved beast, kept on kissing him passionately. Joan, get a grip or we are really gonna have our first intimacy right in the car, Caden said, shaking her gently with the hope of getting her to snap out of it. The moment Joanna got her senses back, she pulled away from him in a flash. She sat with her back facing him. She was so embarrassed that she lost cool of herself. Oh, what is wrong with me? I was never this way, so what has come over me? Could this be as a result of the mission? Joanna was confused as she kept on avoiding him despite that he talked to her twice. I can see she is very embarrassed. I think I need to say something funny to get her to relax around me once again. Caden stared at the back of the lady who has refused to look at him after what occurred between them. The early morning kiss wasn't that bad, and I have this feeling that it will taste even better if we go for another round, Caden said playfully as he drew closer to her. How about we go for another? He was surprised when Joanna suddenly opened the door and jumped out of the car in a flash. Stay away from me. And always make sure to stay 2 meters away from me whenever you want to talk to me, Joanna said, acting all flustered. Caden resisted the urge to burst out laughing when he saw how she was acting. Also, don't you ever kiss me again. I will sew up your mouth if you dared to kiss me again, Joanna said. To Caden's further surprise, she started running away. He wound down the glass of the car and stick out his head so that she will hear what he say. About the kiss, it is not left for us to decide, Caden shouted after her. He watched her as she continued running without looking back. Caden returned to his original position after she was gone. She is one funny lady. She is gonna kill me with laughter one of these days, Caden bursted out laughing the laughter he had suppressed. I had planned to drive her home and use that opportunity to be with her a while longer, but unfortunately she deemed me dangerous, so she ran away, Caden muttered as he ignited the car. I guess it's time to return to who I really am now, Caden said. He drove off at top speed. On her way back home, anyone who set eyes on Joanna runs to go and hide. Unlike in the past when passers-by always stopped to gossip about her, everyone in the kingdom was afraid of her. Because of them, Joanna had a broad smile until she reached the gate of her home. Some distance to reaching the big gate, Joanna was stunned when she raised her gaze and saw Anthony standing with Audrey. Staring at him, she noticed that he has grown a bit taller than when she left him 6 months ago. The moment Anthony turned and saw Joanna, he ran at top speed to go and meet her. Even before he reached her, Joanna had already squatted. She lifted him off the ground when he got to her. Joanna spun him around repeatedly. There was a broad smile on her face as she officially reunites with her little brother. Yay! Big sister is back. Anthony kept on chanting the words, refusing to let go of Joanna. Their reunion lasted for 5 minutes. Had Audrey not intervened, maybe Anthony would have still gone on with it. Tony, you are a big boy now, so come down from her body, Audrey said as she tapped Anthony on the back. But, you are going to get her exhausted this way, so come down. Besides, you have the entire day to hang out with her, right? Audrey said gently. Although he didn't want to come down from Joanna's body, he had no choice but to do it when he recalled that his sister often got tired in the past. Little rice ball, so what were you doing outside the gate, huh? Do your mother and Laura knows that you are here? Joanna said as she stared down at Anthony. He was waiting at the gate to welcome you. I even met him here even though it was still quite early, Audrey said, ruffling Anthony's brown hair. Really, huh? Joanna said jokingly. She smiled when she saw the look in his eyes as he shook his head affirmatively. So how long has my little rice ball been waiting for big sister to come back? Joanna asked with a large sense of humor. About 2 hours, I guess. Whoa. 2 hours? Joanna asked with widened eyes. Audrey watched with pleasure as Joanna talked with Anthony. Although she has barely spent 3 hours with Joanna ever since she returned, Audrey could notice that she has changed. The way she talked changed. She became bolder and her smile looked so genuine and beautiful. Why are you staring at me like that, Joanna asked when she saw that Audrey was staring at her and seemed to be in deep thought. Do you think I have become more pretty from the last time you met me? Joanna asked playfully. Boring, Audrey said jokingly. Although she wanted to look stern, she ended up smiling. While Joanna and Audrey were busy talking and laughing, inside the Anderson home, everyone was busy searching for their young master who had suddenly gone missing. I swear I will skin every single one of you alive if any harm dares to come to my son, Adhara shouted in rage. Chapter 87 Joanna at Home. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Let's go inside, or your stepmother, who has been desperately searching for Tony, might cause a scene on your first day home after such a long time, Audrey said, holding on to Joanna's hand. Does that mean little rice ball didn't tell anyone while coming outside? Joanna asked, pretending to be upset. I knew that they wouldn't let me come out to wait for you. And that's why I snuck out without getting seen by anyone, Anthony said without feeling any remorse for what he did. Anthony knows that if he had told his sister or mother last night that he was going to wait for Joanna outside the gate, without any doubt they would have locked him up in his room. They would have made sure he doesn't step foot out of his room, and this way his plans would have gotten ruined. Don't worry, big sister here will help you to rub ointment if you end up getting spanked, Joanna said teasingly. She held Anthony's hands and together they entered the gate. Stepping foot into the gate, Adhara was waiting outside like she had known that they were gonna enter the building. The angry Adhara hurried to where they stood and violently pulled Anthony away from Joanna. "How many times have I told you never to take my son out of the house without my permission, stupid girl?" Adhara shouted furiously. "Are all my beating and tortures not enough? Are you craving more beatings? Is that why you dared to disobey me again?" Adhara said as she raised her leg to kick Joanna in the stomach. Audrey, who had superb reflexes, pulled Joanna away before Adhara's leg could touch Joanna. Had Audrey seen the evil glints in Joanna's eyes when Adhara tried to hit her, maybe she wouldn't have intervened. Instead of going down on her knees pleading like she normally did, Joanna looked unaffected. "Bacon, stop fooling around and come here to say your greetings to Moo's stepmother," Joanna said, deliberately emphasizing the word stepmother, a word she never dared to call Adhara in the past. The moment the blackbird flew and landed on Joanna's right shoulder, Adhara, who seemed to have forgotten what happened nights ago, drew backwards. Right there the memories of all the tortuous night replayed in her memory. Her legs grew weak and her hands trembled when she recalled the terror she went through. "Stepmother, stop standing there and come in," Adhara said, to the astonishment of Audrey and the maid standing outside with her. She held her son's hand and hurried inside without waiting for Joanna to reply. What had come over that stepmother of yours? Did she eat the goodness pill or did she lose her memory overnight? Audrey asked, not believing that the woman was the same Adhara she knew. Even at trivial things, she would cause a scene, not to mention that what happened involved her son, and yet she didn't only choose to let it go but invited Joanna in. It was just unbelievable. I can see he was right when he said I had tamed them. I wonder for how long my taming pill is gonna last on her. Joanna smiled as she stared at the entrance of the house Adhara stepped into not long ago. Maybe not seeing me for a long time has made her realize my worth, and that is why her attitude has changed towards me. Don't be fooled, because people like her never change even in their dying bed. Her type is the kind who does evil to the very end of their lives. I guess you are right about that, Joanna said playfully as she and Audrey approached the entrance of the building together. Adhara stunned everyone again when she offered Joanna a sit instead of ordering her to sit on the floor like she normally did. Your father went out in the morning, I don't know when he is going to return, Adhara said. With the way she talked it was very obvious that she was forcing herself to talk nicely. An evil woman like Adhara suddenly talking softly made Audrey feel like she was sharing the same table with the devil. While Adhara talked she constantly stole glances at the bird. There was fear in her eyes and Joanna could see this, but the wicked girl decided to have a bit of fun. Stepmother, I can see that you have taken quite a liking to Bacon. If you like her then I don't mind giving it to you. No, I don't want that devilish thing. Adhara, who jerked up in fright, tried to compose herself when she realized how she acted. I mean, the bird is yours, so how could I ever ask you to give it to me, Adhara said, trying not to look scared. Stepmother, I am not that selfish to keep the bird when my elder likes it, so you can keep it, okay, Joanna said as she signaled Bacon to go to Adhara. The moment she gave the signal, Bacon jumped on Adhara without any warning. This single action of Bacon sent Adhara shouting in terror and jumping up from the couch. As if that wasn't enough scare, Bacon tried to jump on top of Adhara's head, but Adhara ran away. As she ran away, Bacon pursued Adhara, who values her image more than anything, and was seen running around the sitting room trying to get rid of the blackbird. Joanna, the perpetrator, sat down on the couch silently laughing at her stepmother, who was acting like a crazy person. Since stepmother is afraid of Bacon, then I will reluctantly take her back, Joanna said, trying her best not to burst out laughing. Bacon, stop fooling around with an elder and come back here, Joanna spoke to the bird. And instantly, Bacon obeyed Joanna's orders. She knew how to stop the bird, but she deliberately humiliated me in front of my workers. How dare she? Adhara glared at Joanna, her blood boiling in rage. For this embarrassment I am gonna make sure to make you pay dearly. Adhara clasped her fists and smiled when Joanna turned to look at her. Adhara was about to reach the couch when Laura climbed down the stairs. The moment Laura lowered her gaze and saw Joanna and the bird, she raced to the top of the stairs. "Mom, why did you let that ghost into our house? Why?" Laura demanded angrily. "I want her out of my house right now. I don't want to ever set my eyes on her," Laura said, her eyes becoming misty. She turned to glare at the guard standing in the room when none obeyed her orders. "What are you still waiting for? I said to get her out of here," Laura ordered fiercely. Two of the guards approached where Joanna and Audrey sat after Laura passed the orders. Joanna stood up from where she sat when the guards stopped in front of her. Joanna turned and glared at the girl standing at the top of the stairs. "Laura, are you really sure you want to do this?" Joanna said as she folded her hand into a fist. "A very important announcement. Happy New Month. First of all, I would like to apologize to regular readers for not updating chapters for the past 3 days. Sorry, I couldn't meet up with the daily updates for you guys, it's just that I was trying to set up the privileged chapters, that is why. As you know, it's a new month and as usual time for new goals. Goals for July 2022. Goal 1. Reach 1000, 1K, privileged chapter unlocked to get 5 extra chapters the following month. To reach this particular goal, you guys have to buy the privileged chapters, and not just buy them but make sure to unlock the chapters daily. Please support my work by buying the privileged chapters and unlocking the chapters daily, because this is the only way the privileged chapter unlock will count. Apart from the 5 chapters mass release, those who buy privileged chapters will stand a chance to win a coin code worth 100 coins the next month. Isn't this amazing? Goal 2. Every 50 golden tickets we get this month guarantees you guys 3 extra chapters. That is to say that if we receive 200 golden tickets this July 2022, you guys stand a chance of getting extra 9 chapters. The daily updates are not included. Isn't this such a fantastic bargain? Goal 3. For every 100 power stones this book receives each week, 3 extra chapters will be uploaded the next week as a reward for the goal. This is to say that if we get 200 power stones this week, in the following week I will give 6 chapters mass release without the inclusion of the daily 2 chapters. Please, let's try hard to complete the goals. I strongly believe we can do this, don't you agree with me on this? Chapter 88 at Hera put on a show. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Get that ghost out of here. I don't want to set my eyes on her, Laura shouted angrily. Before Joanna could get to show them exactly what she was capable of, Anthony, who had been quiet, jumped up and stood in front of Joanna. "Big sister is going nowhere," Anthony yelled. He glared and growled at the guys, telling them to back off. He was so ready to bite off the hand of anyone who dared to touch his sister. "You little brat. Watch and see how I teach you a lesson," Laura said as she stomped down the stairs. "Stop that, Laura. And you are not allowed to call your little brother like that, but he is acting like a brat. How dare he betray us for that daughter of a mistress? That's enough, Laura," Adhara shouted at Laura, to the surprise of Audrey, who hasn't witnessed such a sight before. If there is any good quality about Adhara, it was the fact that she dotes on her 2 children. She treats them like king and queen. It's rare to see her get furious at them, especially at Laura, since she always listens to whatever her mother says. Seeing Adhara shouts at her daughter for the sake of Joanna was a very rare sight. You are not to speak to your little brother like that. Also, your father has already permitted her to live here, so she is going nowhere. But Mom, Laura said unhappily. You always treat her as an eyesore in the past, so why are you suddenly humoring her? Laura said furiously. Did you suddenly develop a soft spot for her just because she arose from the dead? Laura asked. She stomped away in anger before she could let her mother explain. Adhara turned to face Joanna after Laura has left. Don't mind whatever she said. I won't chase you away just because she dislikes you, Adhara said softly. Any other person would have felt happy hearing a person who has treated and spoken to you harshly all your life suddenly treat you nicely, but Joanna was different. She had goosebumps hearing her talk nicely like a good person. Suddenly a popular phrase suitable for this situation popped up in her head. Is this really what people call a calm before a storm? Joanna stared at the lady, not understanding what exactly she was trying to get at by being nice to her. Did she really scare the heartless woman so much, or is she pretending to be afraid of her so that she could use this opportunity to strike her unawares? Although none occupied your room after you died. No, I meant after you left, Adhara corrected herself almost instantly. Some unused things were moved into the room, but don't worry, I will have the maids clean it up so that you can spend the night here, Adhara said. She stretched and pulled Anthony away from Joanna. Whatever she is planning, I will make sure to see it to the end, but since she is quite good at acting, why don't I show her my acting skills too? Joanna grinned inwardly as she stared at the lady, putting on a fake smile. I will have to trouble you and the maids then, Joanna said as she smiled at Audrey. Audrey had to nudge her for Joanna to stop smiling. Stepmother, I haven't seen Dre for a long time. I plan to hang out with her today, I hope you are okay with that, right? Joanna asked, pretending to be an ideal daughter. *CK the title of an ideal daughter, she doesn't want it. Suit yourself then, Adhara said, to the surprise of the maids who were expecting her to yell and also kick Joanna for daring to want to slack from home chores. Is the madam okay? This was the question on their minds as they watched the charade called a family reunion. Big sister, can I come? Adhara covered Anthony's mouth, not letting him complete his sentence. Be good and stay at home. Big sister will come home later, don't worry, Joanna waved at Anthony. She and Audrey left the house with bacon flying around them. Joanna and Audrey went to a cafe to do some catching up. In the cafe, whose interior design was a mixture of milky and brown color, there were only a handful of customers. Joanna and Audrey sat close to the glass wall with only a cup of coffee and dessert in front of Joanna. Anna, what was that in there? Are you and Adhara on good terms? Have you forgiven her for all she put you through all these years? Audrey asked curiously. Forgiven her? Joanna chuckled as though there was something funny about what she said. Do you think someone like her deserves that? If you haven't forgiven her, then what was that earlier? You guys were talking like real family, she was putting on a show, so I helped her to perform well. Is there a problem with that? Joanna asked carefreely. She took a sip from the coffee only to spit it out. Gosh, that was too bitter, Joanna said as she returned the cup of coffee to the milky color center table. Audrey smiled on hearing Joanna's explanation. Oh, so you were only acting. That is good to hear. For an hour Joanna and Audrey chatted. Because they have missed half a year of each other's lives, there were a lot of catching up to do. Audrey did most of the talking since Joanna refused to mention anything about what happened to her during the last 6 months. So what are your plans now that you have returned? Audrey asked seriously. I know I shouldn't have asked you this since you only returned last night, but as you know, you have missed a lot in these 6 months and need to make up for it. Audrey took time to explain herself in case Joanna misunderstood her intentions. It's okay. I am cool with answering your question, Joanna said. She adjusted the way she sat on the brown chair. My plans, for now, are simple. Since my elementary school to university scholarship is still valid, I want to continue schooling, Joanna said firmly. That is nice, Audrey gave her thumbs up to show that she was in full support of that plan. I also want to continue working so I can save money and get out of that hellhole called a home, Joanna trailed as she leaned back on the chair. Since you have always wanted the best for me, I am sure you wouldn't want me to remain in that home in which I could get poisoned anytime and my body quietly disposed of, right? Audrey stretched and held Joanna's hands laying on the table. Actually, you don't have to work very hard. I have an apartment now, so you can come live with me, I don't mind. Ednel.co, my whole life has been dependent on you and I don't want this to continue, but Anna, you know that I have never complained of these things. Are you planning to take care of me all my life? Joanna asked seriously. Why not? Audrey said without any hesitation. She has always known how deep Audrey's love for her was, but seeing how confident Audrey was while saying this word made Joanna feel a sense of warmth in her heart. How could a person's love be so selfless? Chapter 89 Joanna's Dream. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. I know you are willing to take care of me all my life, but that is not what I want, Dre, Joanna replied seriously. She made sure to stare into Audrey's eyes while saying these. No doubts, you are an amazing friend. But for once I want to fight for what I want. I want to fight for my dreams and what makes me happy, Joanna said emotionally. She stared at Audrey waiting to see how she will receive her words. At first, Audrey was hurt that Joanna rejected her help, but hearing what her best friend said made her very happy. You now have a dream, Audrey asked as she playfully tapped Joanna's hands. Joanna shook her head affirmatively. In the past, she never dared to dream. To her, living to see another day was a very great blessing. She lived her entire life in fear of what the next day holds for her. How could someone like her dare to dream? And what is your dream? Audrey asked, smiling. Tell me, and together we are gonna make it a reality. I have suffered all my life, so for these remaining years of my life I want to spend it having loads of fun and living a carefree life, Joanna said. As simple as her dream may sound, they both know that this was a very expensive dream. Although it may take a long time to achieve it, this doesn't mean that achieving your dream is impossible. This big sister here is gonna help you to achieve it, believe me. Audrey hits her right chest to show how confident she was. Big sister. Are you referring to yourself or me? Joanna asked, beaming. Hey little girl, have you forgotten that I am a year older than you? Not a year older, but 6 months older, so stop adding more months to your years, okay? Joanna said with a huge sense of humor, making Audrey burst out laughing. Joanna didn't want to return home early, so Audrey, who was searching for this type of opportunity, spent time with her until it was night. When it was time to call it a day, Audrey escorted her back home. Joanna was passing by Laura's room when she heard them talking in low tones. With her incredible sense of hearing, she didn't need to stress herself to hear what they were saying, even though they spoke in low tones. She paused walking when she realized that they were talking about her. Mom, why did you let her live with us after what that psycho did to us? Laura complained bitterly. She didn't only embarrass me in front of so many people, but videos of us acting like mad people because of her supposed ghost are everywhere, Laura trailed. How are we gonna live in the kingdom now that it's proved that she is not dead? Because of the video, people will see us as lunatics. Adhara raised her hand and grabbed Laura by the shoulders. How do we have our revenge if we don't keep her here? Adhara grinned evilly as she stared into her daughter's eyes. How do we know our enemy's strength and the extent of her powers if we don't keep her here? What do you mean by that, mother? Laura asked curiously. She sounded less upset after hearing that her mother had a plan. Apart from keeping her here to avoid people's criticism, I allowed her to stay here despite my hatred for that witch because, Adhara pulled closer and whispered the remaining words into her daughter's ears. What? Laura shouted in shock. Her lips curled into an evil grin when her mother's words resounded in her head. That's why I will advise you to stop worrying. Go about your life like you have always done and leave getting rid of that bastard to me. That is a job I am very good at, Adhara said, grinning evilly. She pulled away and sat properly on the bed. I have always known that mother loves me the most, Laura said, not able to stop herself from smiling. Joanna quickly left the front of the door before the mother and daughter duo who are conspiring against her could sense her presence. Reaching her room, Joanna lay on the medium-sized bed covered with gray quilts. She lay with her back against the bed and her head upwards. If this was the old Joanna, I can assure you guys that you could have succeeded without having to put on a strong fight, but this is me, Joanna trailed as she stared into space. If you think that you can easily get rid of me, then you are very wrong. I will not only scare the life out of you, but I will make sure you don't get what you want, Joanna mumbled with clasped fists. This is a promise from the girl whom all of you collectively pushed to her death. Since she couldn't fall asleep, Joanna brought out the cell phone Caden had bought for her. She was playing with her cell phone when her sharp ears picked up approaching footsteps. Judging by how hard the person was trying to conceal the sound of her footsteps, she knew that person was up to no good. She quickly hid the cell phone and pretended as though she was asleep. As the footsteps get closer, Joanna tried to recognize the person through the scent, but she couldn't. Her heart started pounding as whoever owned the footsteps got closer to her room door. She clenched her fist she had hidden under the quilts when the door creaked open. She tried to regulate her heartbeat, but it was futile. Joanna listened as the person closed the door and started walking towards where she lay. After making sure that she was asleep, the person sat down on the bed. Joanna's heart momentarily stopped and the person brought her hand towards her neck. Is she perhaps trying to strangle me in my sleep? Chapter 90. Someone is coming. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Before the person could fathom what was going on, the agile Joanna grabbed the person by the neck and pressed him hard against the bed. How dare you try to strangle? Joanna was speechless when she lowered her gaze and saw that the person she was pinning down was Caden and not a killer as she thought. How come it's you? Joanna asked, instantly releasing him. Caden sat up on the bed and stared at her face. I have always known that you were one gentle and loving girl, so how come your grip is so hard? Caden asked. He held his neck pretending to be in pain. What did you expect when you sneaked in on me? I thought you were a bad person and that is why I applied a lot of strength. Are you trying to tell me you had plans of breaking the person's neck if it had turned to be a bad guy like you had assumed? Caden asked playfully. He made himself very comfortable on the bed, notwithstanding that this was his first time entering Joanna's room. Why not? Joanna said nonchalantly. It would have been the person's luck and not my fault. I mean, you don't expect me to go easy on my enemies, or do you? Of course not. You have the permission of your husband, the most powerful man in the kingdom, to break the necks and bones of anyone who poses a threat to you, Caden said. He beats his right chest playfully. He stretched his hand and tapped her on the right shoulder. You have this influential man as your backer, what is there to be afraid of? Joanna playfully pushed his hand away from her shoulder. You can say whatever you like, I won't argue with you because I am sure we are gonna wake up the entire neighborhood if I follow your footsteps. It's good to know that you are aware of this, Caden said, smiling as he laid down on her bed. There was quietness in the room afterwards. So why were you acting sneakily in the room of a single woman, huh? What would you have me do if someone were to barge in on us? Joanna said. She was quite taken aback when Caden sat up without giving her any warnings. It has only been a few hours since we parted ways and it felt like an eternity. It was as if I was gonna lose my mind if I didn't see you, and that is why I am here, Caden said without an ounce of shame. He loved her and this he is very proud of. So why would he feel embarrassed about confessing his feelings for her every single day? It's not like it is a crime to fall in love. You could have taken care of your feelings one way or the other instead of barging into a single lady's room. Don't you know how dangerous this is? Joanna said, sounding scared. An idea popped into Caden's head seeing her act this way. How dangerous can it be? Caden asked as he pulled very close to her. He stretched his upper body so that his face was a few inches from hers. Is it like this, huh? Caden circled her slender waist with his powerful left hand and pulled her waist closer. Due to the shock, Joanna suddenly stopped breathing. Or like this? Caden said as his face inched closer to hers. Normally Joanna would have closed her eyes when he tried to kiss her, but when she recalled the incident in the car that morning she quickly pushed his chest away. She stopped him from having a taste of her delicious lips that he has subconsciously gotten addicted to. Dawn. Don't come close to me, the flustered Joanna stammered as she shielded her chest with her hands crossed. Didn't you hear when I said you must keep 2 meters distance from me? Joanna asked while avoiding looking at his face. Her heartbeat was so loud that it made Caden listening to it very happy. He decided to tease her further. Your heart is pounding so fast, thump, thump, ba. Boom, ba. Bump, Caden said as he drew closer to her once again. Your heart is very excited about me just like your body keeps failing what your brain wants. Caden's smile broadened. He lowered his head and brought his mouth to her right ear. This is the sign that you love me too, so stop rejecting me, okay? Caden's smile spread across his face as he quickly licked her lips, causing Joanna's body to immediately stiffen. Caden didn't give her the chance to push him away, but he pulled away after he was done saying what he wanted to. Seeing that she was becoming a joke because of her body and heart, Joanna decided to change the topic. Don't you know how dangerous it is for you to be here? Can you imagine the rumors that will spread about us if someone sees both of us here? Joanna asked. They will think we did that, you know what I mean. Joanna deliberately refused to say the word so that Caden will not use it against her. Instead of letting them wrong us by speculating things, why don't we do those things here so that we will feel less wronged even though they spread the rumor, Caden said. He tried to make her lay on the bed, but Joanna resisted with all her might. Joanna shielded her chest with the quilts after she was able to escape from Caden. Stay away from me. You are a great danger to my system, so keep away, okay? Joanna said. They were still talking when two of them heard someone approaching her bedroom. Someone is coming, Joanna and Caden said at the same time. Caden turned and gave her a puzzled look. Is your sense of hearing the same as mine? Caden asked curiously. That is not what is important right now. The most pressing issue is that you need to leave before the person reaches here, Joanna said as she quickly pushed him out of bed. But why do I need to sneakily leave? Have you forgotten that I am the king? Yeah, I did forget that you are the king because you are the first king I have seen sneaked into a single lady's room at night, Joanna said as she urged him to go. Unlike the nervous Joanna, Caden for some reason looked very relaxed even though the person was coming very close to Joanna's door. Is it at Hera this time around? Joanna's head was all over the place trying to find a place for Caden to hide. A/N. Please continue to support the book with gifts, golden tickets, power stones, comments and reviews. Also, don't forget our goals for the month because these goals will guarantee whether or not you guys will get all the extra chapters as a reward. Also, for those who don't have money to buy the highest tier of privileged chapters, you can buy the affordable ones because this is the reason I shared the tiers into 5. I wanted every one of my readers to be able to afford it, so please support this poor author by buying the privileged chapters and unlocking the chapters daily. If you want to stand a chance to win 100 code coins next month, your only ticket to getting the code is by buying privileged chapters, so what are you waiting for? I believe we can achieve the goal, so you guys need to believe in yourselves too. Fighting.